So this week I am delighted to welcome Nicola Kinnard-Comedie, who is a mindset and business coach. She helps equine and canine therapists to create their dream business. She mentors vets as well and regularly speaks at conferences in the UK and the US. She's the director of NKC Equestrian Training and host of the Healthy Horse Conference, which we'll talk about towards the end, which is not only for equine professionals but also for the committed horse owner, the horse owners that like to know a little bit more about their horses. So, big warm welcome, Nicola. Lovely to see you.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me as a guest.
Tell us where it all started for you. What is your horsey background?
Oh my goodness, that is a great question. Well, I think I was just born wanting a pony, like so many, so many people in the horsey world. I just wanted a pony so much, and I have lots of lovely family in Ireland. And I can remember when I was little, we were staying at my granny's house, and a pony was produced from seemingly nowhere to stay in granny's garden while we were there. I was about 5, and I think that was me hooked. Although my mum is not horsey, my parents aren't horsey, nobody had any idea how to tack up this pony, but we found a way. And I have to say, that's all I wanted was a pony. Riding lessons followed. I didn't actually own a pony. Pony shares followed. I bought my first horse at 21, and I just adored every minute I spent with horses. Whether it was riding, whether it was cuddling them, whether it was making new velvet brow bands for my pony when I was about 10. Do you remember we used to go and get bits of ribbon and cross them over? It was before we had lots of bling in the horse world. We're going back quite a few years. And yeah, horses, I have to say, have been my entire life. They really have. I qualified as a riding instructor, oh my gosh, a very long time ago, over 20 years ago, when I was about 20, 21. And I was actually in the middle of a journalism degree because I wanted to be a journalist. And I was really miserable at university. It just really wasn't the right fit for me. And then I was like, what am I? So I decided I'd leave that. And I said, what on earth am I going to do with myself? And I just had this, I don't know, vision, calling, whatever the word is, to teach people to ride horses. And it was just the most amazing experience. I just loved every second. And although I don't teach people full time in the way that I used to, I am very fortunate to, still ride often. And you've always got that eye, always looking for how you and others around you can improve. So I feel like the training part has never really left. So that kind of starting to teach people in my early 20s. I've worked abroad and worked with horses in New Zealand. I managed a big centre in Greece. That was really a cool experience. Particularly, it's very, very different coming from the UK. Yeah, incredibly different experience. You just had to get on with it. It was amazing. Riding through the olive groves, show jumping would start at 10 o'clock at night. It was incredibly different from England.
Yeah.
But that was an amazing, amazing chapter. Then I was back to the UK, finished off my master's degree in equine science into running a big yard in Berkshire, which was on paper the dream job. In reality, I got very tired, very burnt out, working insane hours when I look back. And I took a bit of a break from full-time horses. I still had my own horse, and I actually ended up in corporate sales, working for in a veterinary team. It was an amazing experience. And then I had a baby. That baby is now 10. This was quite a long time ago. And I was still doing a little bit of teaching on the side. And I just reached this real crossroads where I wanted to be more involved with horses again, but I also wanted that time flexibility and freedom. And I was also starting to feel frustrated with only being able to help one horse at a time because, I'd spent 15 odd years teaching people to ride horses. It was such a passion, such a calling, and making such a difference and seeing people's lives change, their horses get stronger, happier, this connection. It was just brilliant. But then I just felt like I could help more horses. I didn't know how. I had no idea how I was going to do that, in fact. But again, a bit like that calling, if you like, 20 plus years before, I was like, oh, there's got to be a way. So I decided that I would set up a coaching and training company. At that point, I was teaching about 3 people to ride horses and thinking about how I could possibly leave my corporate career. And I decided I would run a horse first aid course with some qualified vets. And I thought, what have I got to lose? Tracy, I had no clue really. I had no website, no branding. I had a Facebook page with about 40 people who I literally knew in person following me. And I set up a Facebook event. I remember this so clearly. Set up this Facebook event and I thought, let's see what happens. And I sold all the tickets in about 5 days. And I was hooked. And I was like, this is it. It's got the science, it's got the sales, it's got the marketing. I'm hanging out with vets. I'm not freezing cold. I'm not covered in mud. And I'm making a real difference. We had, I think, 20 people on that first course. And they were all just like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this. Now I can do a better job for my horse. And I was like, oh, okay, this is my next chapter. And that we've just celebrated 8 years in business. And that's how my training and coaching company started. So it's a long answer to your question about how did I, start out with horses, but that is my equestrian journey. It's been a whirlwind, I have to say, and I've loved every minute.
That's a fascinating journey from a pony in Ireland to
Yeah,
helping vets.
yeah.
So, how is it now? I know you started in the first aid training
Mm,
side of things, but I know also that it's expanded
yeah,
exponentially. How do you help the equine physios and other therapists and the vets now? What do you do for them now?
yeah. So when we started those first aid courses, and we ran, oh my gosh, we ran a lot of them, course after course. We developed other courses. We did our first conference in 2019, which was amazing. I got some of my past university lecturers to come, and that was really really cool. And people whose research, like Sue Dyson, who had read all their books, and there they were at my conference. It was amazing. When I was running these events, I was meeting more and more practitioners and therapists who, because I'm just such a chatty and tiny bit nosy person, I'd be, asking them how their business was.
Yeah.
And they'd all say the same thing. I love what I do, but I hate the marketing side. I hate the sales side. I don't know how to get clients. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a waste. Like people need to know about how great these people are and how much they can help their horses. And that's where and they were all saying the same thing about imposter syndrome. And having had a real battle with imposter syndrome as a rider myself, I've always done mindset work. I started to do at the beginning of my business journey a lot more focused mindset work on how I could shift and change to build the life and business that I wanted. And I saw this huge difference in me. I had a strong marketing and sales background, and I was doing that in my business. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could help these people too. And that's how we set up our first coaching program for practitioners in 2020. And it's just been absolutely amazing. I went on to do my own NLP coach practitioner training with you, Tracy, a number of years ago. And it's just been absolutely fantastic. I've just added so many different modalities on from there. And it's really cemented work that I've probably always done on an informal basis. Like I know I used the power of meditation and visualization to get myself better from having ME or chronic fatigue syndrome in my mid-20s. And it was just then incredible to help all these therapists, and seeing such a difference in them meant that they were helping more horses. And I was like, oh, this is like a triple win. This is really fulfilling my wish to help more horses. And now these people are happier, they're switching off more. And I just felt like, wow, this is just so incredible.
Yeah.
These people are getting their lives changed. All these extra horses are being helped and treated and seen. And then lots of these horsey people also treated dogs. And then we started working with people who just treat dogs. And then I started speaking at more vet conferences. And funnily enough, all the vets felt the same, like an imposter. And that's how we are here. It's been such an incredible journey. But I think seeing what people needed and seeing what I had been able to bring about change in myself and my own company, I felt like I couldn't not help people really in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really excellent. And I want to just segue. Something you just mentioned that I didn't know about was your ME.
Oh
and that
yeah.
you basically got yourself through it with
Mm,
mindset and visualization.
yeah.
Can you expand on that just a
Yeah,
little bit?
yeah,
'Cause I
cool.
think
Do you
that's
know, I really like
really
talking about it actually
interesting.
because lots and lots of people in the equestrian world, in the vet world, have ME or myalgic encephalitis or chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever you want to call it. But this is my little story on this. I was very busy. I was very fit. I was 24. I would ride 8 horses a day. I would also go out partying quite a lot. And then I suddenly felt like I was getting the flu in the middle of a lesson. I felt really unwell. And I got home, went to bed. And you know, you just think, oh, it's one of those like 24-hour, 48-hour things. I just didn't get better. I suddenly couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. You know, I'd gone from training for a marathon, riding with this horse every day. I couldn't walk up the stairs without sitting down. And I moved back to my parents' house. And just to be clear, that's like a regular set of stairs. You know, I'm not talking
Yeah.
about 80, 100 stairs. I'd been that fit and I was suddenly unable to do anything. And it's quite hard to diagnose that, or it certainly was back then. Saw lots of different specialists, had 100 tests and blood tests and scans and so forth. Worked out what it was. I was then told I would never ride again. I was told I'd never recover. And I can remember very clearly once I'd stopped crying, telling this consultant, you just watch me. And I remember thinking, okay, if I was a horse and I had a tendon injury, and this is going back almost 20 years, you know, we rehab tendon injuries a slightly different way then. I was thinking, okay, well, I'd be on box rest and I would do controlled exercise. This is my very simplistic brain. And that's what I did. I worked out that most activities, even having a conversation, was very tiring. So it was only a small amount of what I class as red activities I could do a day. And then I could do some things that took very little energy, like listening to an audiobook or watching incredibly trashy TV. I watched a lot of The Simple Life with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. They were that really just held me together at that time. And then green activities wasn't sleeping, it was deep meditative state. And I just saw myself being better in that time. And I was like, I'm going to ride, and I'm going to ride in walk, and I'm going to ride for 5 minutes for 3 times a week for the first month. And then I think I went to 7 minutes and then to 10 minutes. And I started doing a bit of trotting. And when I got to 10 minutes, I remember persuading one of my friends to ride my horse. Because at this time, I'd stopped driving. I was just so unwell, to ride my horse about an hour and a half away to a dressage centre so that I could go and do a walk and trot dressage test. This is how much I was missing riding and competing. And I figured I had 10 minutes. So I think the test was like 4 minutes or something like that. So I was like, I can do 6 minute warm up and a 10 minute, 4 minutes in the test. And I can't tell you how much that did for me when I was second in that. So it was probably about 10 people in the class, but that was just such a huge boost. And I just kept knowing and seeing that I would be better. I could see myself in the future, really far in the future. I could see myself with children in the future. And I was told, oh, probably won't be able to have children because you're a bit like, oh, you're so tired, never going to ride again. And I just saw myself doing things. And I think it really was the power of resetting my brain, retraining my brain. I didn't even know what my nervous system was at that time, but I think I probably accidentally did a lot of resetting of that. And I just convinced myself I would get better. And it makes me sad when I hear about people all the time. Oh, so and so's got this, and oh, they've had it for 30 years and never got better. It took me 2 years to get totally better. I did also do a master's degree part time, which was really hard in that first year because I would literally do a 3 hour training session at uni. My dad used to drive me like 2 hours from my house to Cirencester, do that training, and I would sleep all the way home, and I'd be out of about 3 days. But I think mentally it was really important for me to feel like I hadn't quit on all of my dreams and all of my goals because everything had been taken away. And that was like a real, that was really helpful to keep that sort of link in there. But yeah, it really was when I look back, I think it was a combination of being really stubborn, being really disciplined, and visualization and meditation that got me back. And that is, it's a long time ago. Of course, I get tired. Everybody gets tired, but I've never, touching some fake wood here, I've never had a relapse since, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Oh, fabulous. Do you think those are pillars for your business, for your advice for your clients, so on, that you stay stubborn, and you stay active, and you move forward gradually, and you use your mind as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm so passionate about helping people to avoid burnouts because to me, that situation I got myself in probably was avoidable, probably did miss listening to my body for a number of years. Maybe I was meant to have that condition and recover from it. Maybe I could have avoided it. We'll never know. And it's not a problem. It's all done. But I really love helping people to take that pressure off because I think when you get into that hustle, that grind state, people feel like they can't give themselves permission to take time off. We've all felt of it just, okay, yes, you've still got to feed the horses and animals have still got to be taken care of, but we don't always then have to open a laptop at 10 o'clock at night and you can do things on your terms. And I really do love to lead my company by that example. All of my team, to a large extent, work the hours they want to. If you have a mad energy boost and it's 11 o'clock at night, great, go for it. If you are somebody that is a 5 a.m. on the laptop type of person, fabulous. Just I won't be there, but that's great. You do you. But it's getting people to work with their natural energy and having that freedom and flexibility.
Oh, that sounds superb. And another thing that I know you're really passionate about is change, because you're basically in the change business, aren't you?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
change people's business by helping them with the marketing, helping them with the mindset and so on. So, what does change mean for you as a personal on a personal level, but also on a business level for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm first going to answer that by just explaining why I'm so passionate about change. I think so many things feel out of reach, be that with your riding, be that with your business, be that with your health, anything. It can so often things can feel like over there. And I think we both know, Tracy, that our brains don't like change. We're very resistant to change. So I think I'm so passionate about change because when you break it down into those little baby steps, it is actually possible. So I think that's the first thing I'd really like to just get across is that whatever years you want, it you can get there. And I think that's the biggest barrier and being in the change industry, so to speak, is that people just feel like things that they want are out of reach. And I can remember craving so much change when I had a baby, had an unreliable full-time nanny, had a corporate job, felt so stressed. All I wanted was that time freedom. I just didn't know how. And I think if you want to create change, you need to know where you're going, and then you need to work on the steps that make it possible. But creating change or supporting other people to have change, it's it's giving them the freedom and the permission that I think really, and then the tools to practically do that. But I think the permission to dream, and when somebody says, "Oh my gosh, you could totally do that," that's life changing, isn't it? When someone really believes in you, it's infectious. And then you really believe in yourself. And then, of course, you do start taking those actions. But to me, change, it's not this kind of like radical change it all overnight, which is what I think we tend to think of, which then also sounds very scary. To me, change, it's a really boring answer, Tracy. Change is all about those micro shifts. It's the baby steps. It's millimeter by millimeter. That to me is the best type of change because it sticks, and it doesn't feel frightening, and you can just keep gently chipping away at it. I think I thought change or like big leaps forward in business had to look like, I don't know, like remortgaging your house and spending £100,000 on Facebook ads or something, which I'm never going to do. Then I realized there was another way. You could just do all these little incremental improvements and upgrades. And then suddenly you find you're over here, maybe even further than you thought you'd ever go. And it wasn't quite so painful. So that to me is what change is. It's not the big scary thing. It's these little baby steps, but in the right direction. It's that focused direction. And I always say on training sessions or with my clients that I mentor that training your brain, it's just like training any other part of your body, or training a horse or training a dog. It's the right exercises repeated over time. And when you just look at it that simply, I'm sure everybody listening has trained a horse. You can train yourself basically in the same way. You don't need to run around an arena, but you need a plan, and you just need to keep showing up in the same way. It might be raining, it might be cold, and you don't feel like riding, but you probably will still ride your horse when you've got a goal in mind. We just need that discipline for ourselves.
I love that. I love that. I love that you mentioned freedom, that
Mm,
change equals freedom, or it's part of the freedom equation.
yeah,
I absolutely adore that, because I think that's what people really are seeking, especially
yeah,
as equestrians. We want the time to ride. A lot of
yeah,
people work and they choose their particular job so that either they can afford the horse, or
mm,
and or hopefully they can they can find the time to ride. So once they go, sometimes people go into these equestrian businesses, don't they, where you're a solopreneur, you're the only
yeah,
person in the business, you're a therapist, you're on the road, you're treating horses and so on. Or you could be a coach, a riding coach as well.
yeah,
And they go into it because they want the freedom, but it doesn't give the freedom automatically.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
and
And I
and
think sadly for so many equestrian businesses, the typical business model is, I call it the one horse model. You see one horse with a lesson, be you treat them, get in the car, or the next one's there on the same yard, and it's like a conveyor belt. And the mark of success just becomes more people, more hours, and then suddenly you wake up and find you've left the house at 6 a.m., you got home at 8 p.m., your own horse hasn't seen the light of day. Obviously it's been looked after, but you haven't been
yeah,
able to do what you wanted with your own horse. And that's where I love supporting people to create the business that they want. Because I think so often we build a business based, or we build a life as well, based on somebody else's idea of success,
yeah,
not actually what we want. There's, so many people listening have gone through that sort of, people leave school, do, pass exams, do this, next step, do this. And then you can wake up and think, crikey, I don't think this is actually what I want. And
yeah.
that stuck feeling, I've been there, it's horrible. And I would just love everybody listening to just know that you've got all the tools, particularly if you're listening to this podcast regularly, you've got all the tools for change. It's just simply deciding where you want to go and just taking those micro baby steps towards there. And when you change yourself, you'll find that you're there quicker than you ever thought possible. And you'll wake up one day and you'll realize you're living that dream life, that life you craved, that freedom, that time freedom, whatever it is, you'll find you're there.
Great, great. Now we were chatting just before we started recording, and it's to do with change as well, about change in the horse world. So on a grander scale than one
Mm,
horse, one owner, but with the vets and the owners, and also the elite riders, and we're talking about this massive, almost a revolution. It's a very slow revolution, I have to say. But this revolution in thinking about horse welfare and change. So what's your take on all of that?
Oh my goodness. I think the equestrian world has got to a little bit of a crossroads right now, Tracy, where we've got lots of great information. And I think in some ways it's never been a better time to own a horse or be involved with horses, because we've got the most incredible information at our fingertips. We were talking before we started recording, weren't we, about back in the day when you had to get a book off the shelf or go to the library and research something. We've got so much at our fingertips, which is great. But then we've also hit a bit of a barrier where the general public are perhaps not quite so pro equestrian sport. We've had a few high profile welfare cases in equestrian sport. And I feel like there is this huge need for change. And I think there's a hunger for change. And I think there's owners waking up realizing that perhaps just because they've done things the same way for 20 years, maybe there's a better way of doing things. There's lots of people leading kind of very small little revolutions, if you like. And I think that is so, so powerful, because I think the horse world has got to change a little bit. We know more, so we should be doing more. What we used to maybe think of as a horse that was, oh, he's just a bit fizzy. Maybe now that could be pain, and we just didn't know. But I think now that we do know so much more, we can't ignore the growing body of evidence about what makes a horse happy and healthy, what gives a good relationship. In the same way that, you know, you wouldn't expect to have a riding lesson and just someone scream at you and tell you you're rubbish, which was a common way. That's certainly how I
Yeah,
was taught to
yeah.
ride. That's, you know, coaching, thankfully, has changed massively in the equestrian space. And I think that the rest of the horsey world is catching up. I think there's a real appetite for change. I think it's a good time for change because we've got all this information. And to me, change it, we can't just sit there waiting for a governing body or our riding instructor or whoever to tell us to do things differently. I think we've all got to take a degree of personal responsibility and start looking at what we do with our horses, how we do things. Is there anything we could do better? In the same way that we could look at, I don't know, our own health or fitness or nutrition, we could probably all do 1 or 2 or even 5% better. I know I could. And then if you apply that to your horse, it doesn't have to be radical, but maybe there's a way that things could be slightly better. Maybe your horse get more access to horsey friends, or maybe they can have more turnout time, or maybe there's a different way you could bring them to the field or get them ready to be ridden, or this, you know, there's a million ways you could look at this where they would get what they need. And I think this is the time to make sure horses are getting what they need as well as we are getting what we need.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lovely explanation. And I suppose that leads us on to your conference in November, the Healthy Horse Conference,
Yeah.
because you're having lots of big name speakers talking about the current status of the horsey world from different angles, but also a lot of people who they may not be standing up as welfare people as such, but they are talking about ways in which we can improve a horse's life too. Tell us a little bit about this conference because it sounds
Yeah.
really exciting.
Oh, yeah. Well, we started this conference. We first ran this conference in 2019. This is the fourth Healthy Horse Conference, and my aim has always been to bring the latest research, the latest thinking, and present it in a way that we can actually do something different. Because I love reading research articles. I was at a research conference a couple of weeks ago. It was amazing. But actually, I don't have anything to go and put into place. And
Yeah.
having read so many academic papers over the years, which are all fascinating, you read it, you shut it, close the laptop, whatever, and then you go back to doing the same thing. And that's that's the reason we set up this conference, is to provide that bridge between what is the latest thinking and what you're doing in the everyday world. So be you a horse owner, be you a coach, a trainer, a saddler, a sports massage therapist for horses, a vet physio, doesn't matter. Everyone's got day-to-day life with horses, and how can we take this latest research, latest thinking, and just put things into practice? So that's why we set up the conference. This year it's all about empowering our attendees for change. We're looking at rehab, we are looking at updates from the vet world, we're looking at assessing the horse's quality of life. Got a really interesting talk. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to particular. It's all about seeking permission from horses. So we're not just, oh, hi horse, boom, head collar on, slap the saddle on, off we go. How can we have a more joined up, way of being with our horses? How can we seek permission so that we do things with our horses, not just to them? We're looking at AI as well. How can AI help our horses? We've got a really interesting piece on environmental changes that anybody can make. Because again, I think I've been in this position as well. You see like a beautiful track set up on social media, and then you think about your livery experience where perhaps your hands are totally tied and they seem just so far apart, and the track system, whatever that system looks like, seems so out of reach. But actually our speaker about environments is going to be giving people the kind of practical ideas, but also the power to make subtle changes to your horse's environment. Because that's where we might spend an hour a day riding or doing things with our horse, but it's the other 23 hours a day that to me are so important. And and how can we set that up so that we've got happy, healthy horses all of the time. So yeah, we've got a real range of topics. It's all about empowering our delegates to leave ready to make better choices, put better things in place for the horses in their lives. It's for horse owners, equine practitioners, and equine professionals. And yeah, it's going to be an amazing event in November. It's a hybrid event, so people can join day one in person if they'd like to come down to Berkshire. We're just outside Reading in a beautiful hotel, or they can watch it from the comfort of their sofa. It's streamed live as well. And then day two is online only, because we've got some more US speakers, people that couldn't fly in person. So we wanted to have an online day, and day two starts a little bit later for our US attendees and anybody else wanting to get a quick ride in the morning. So yeah, it's a 2-day event. It's going to be absolutely brilliant.
Oh, lovely, lovely. And also, we said before, although you've aimed it partially at the equine professionals, interested horse owners, the type of horse owners that go and read up about horses and horse
Yeah.
conditions and that, they would be very welcome as well.
Oh, 100%. The horse owner who goes to like the vet evenings, the horse owner that reads, the sort of longer articles, and like, yeah, 100%, please do come along. You'll be most welcome, and you'll take so much away from it as an owner as well as a professional.
And we've got a little discount code as
We
well,
have a
haven't
little
we?
discount code. Yes, we have. So we have given all of the listeners a special discount code to get 25% off their conference tickets, whether that's in person or online. That code is applicable for both.
Great, great. I will put the link to the conference and the link to the, well, not the link, but the discount code in the description box so everyone can have a little look at that. That's brilliant. So, where do you think then, looking ahead into the future, and because you attend a lot of these conferences and you also put them on yourself, where do you think we're heading in terms of riding and equestrianism in the 2030s, maybe?
That is a great question.
Sorry, it's a real
No,
curveball
it's
question
a
as well,
great
isn't
question. It really is.
it?
The reason I paused is because I was thinking the other day. Sometimes I just think, oh my gosh, should we even be riding horses? I think we're going to get to a point where we cannot ignore what the research is telling us, and I think we're at this moment where we really do need to listen. But another 10 years on, things will have to have changed. We won't be seeing unhappy horses, I hope, particularly in the public eye at that top level of sport. And I really hope that we'll be getting to a place where horses can be horses as well as tick whatever boxes we need from them. Because I think sometimes we can go too far the other way, and I think you can get to a point where your horse can be really happy and do whatever you want them to do. I think of horses that I've had over the years where maybe they didn't like doing one thing, but then we found what they loved, and it was like everybody was happy. I had basically a pony, a big pony, years and years ago, who then discovered the love show jumping. She kind of tolerated, but she discovered the love of drag hunting quite late in her life, and that was just her happy place. It really was. She just adored it, and I wish we'd really that sooner. But I think the more we can listen and find that place where you can get what you want as an owner, as a rider, as a professional, and the horse can get what they want and need. That to me is hopefully where we're headed.
Oh, lovely. I love that. And I think it's going to come. I really do think it's going to come. Not yet, not next year or the year after, but it will come. I think that'll
I
be.
think looking to some of the amazing research that's coming out, and looking at like the power of AI tools, where we can be like, for example, there's a training mirror which will tell you how much of the time your horse's head was in front of the vertical, on the vertical, behind the vertical, and that's just one example. I think if we could harness some of these amazing tools, it will be so much easier to avoid accidentally missing things. Because I think for the vast majority of owners and trainers and professionals and riders, we don't want to do a bad job, but it is easy to miss things. Oh my goodness, I've missed so much over the years. And I think if we can harness new tools, new research, new technology, it'll be even easier to help horses in the future.
Yeah, what a lovely note to end on. Just before we go, do tell us where we can find you on the internet and socials.
Oh, of course. So if you head over to nkcequestrian.com, you'll find details of the conference. You'll find we've got lots of free resources on there. You'll find lots of articles about horse care, running a business, mindset. So do look there. On Instagram, it's NKC Business Coaching, and you'll find us on Facebook at NKC Equestrian Training.
Brilliant. I will put all those links again into the description box so people can have a little look and follow you. Thank you so much. That has been such a lovely talk about change, but also we've kind of gone all over the place in terms of the horsey world. Thank you. That has been really great.
Oh, my pleasure, Tracy. Thanks so much for having me as a guest.